Now, everybody here's a grandparent. Well, we may have one or two exceptions. But how many have grandkids that are in their toddler area? Anybody? Oh, yeah. I really respect you. You know, they call it the terrible twos. Well, it's not terrible. They're just the same as they were before, except they become more mobile. And they go around by themselves. And the fingerprints typically are about 18 inches off the floor. Yeah. How many have their grandkids in, oh, say, up to before teenagers? Yep. The main thing that happens there is the fingerprints get higher. And how many have teenagers? Oh boy. Now they're trying to figure out which end is up. Also, they're trying to figure out how to push the buttons. And they're pretty good at that. Once they find a button that works. I want to thank you for letting an old guy up here. You asked, how old?
How old are you?
Man, you didn't say anything. You expect me to do this comedy by myself. 75. Now, in comedy, we call that a sympathy applause. Yep. Last time I saw a crowd like this is when they crossed the Red Sea. I worry a lot about what's going to fall off next. And I'm not even Caitlin. Yeah, that was an uh-oh. I'm so old, I was born in MCMXLI. All of a sudden, the silence covers the room. That's Roman numerals. Of course you know that. You just don't know what it means. I always have to explain that part to Apache Junction. When I was a kid, that's all we had. Not Apache Junction, the Roman numerals. Back then, Roman numerals take up so much space, the serial number was bigger than my Apple iPhone. You people are good at math, I can tell. Every time I dial a number, I'd get Roman charges. Moans are good too, you know. And back then we had a whole different meaning for XXX. And another silence over the room. You guys need to watch more Sesame Street. That meant when you were 30, you were already over the hill. Yeah, I just hope I don't fall asleep here. You know, as us old people, we tend to fall asleep usually. That's not likely with you guys. You're so awesome. Give yourselves a hand. Yay! You're so awesome. I want to invite you to come and spice up my funeral. Too late, it was last week. If I'm lucky, I'll remember what I want to say. You know, seniors tend to get forgetful and get lost. And if you're lucky, I'll wander off somewhere. Silver alert! Silver alert! I just hope I don't wander off to Chicago. Actually, I was there during my last summer comedy tour, and did you see the latest news? Shootings there are up 88% over last year. Murders are up too, except only 72%. So it looks like I need to encourage them to take more gun classes. Although in Chicago I was there for about a week, and I never did get hit by a tomato or anything else. Yep, I make up for my waning physical prowess with my superior senior stupidity. Senior and stupid, some of you aren't laughing because you're there. Doesn't that remind you of Congress? Yep, they're the clowns that decided that it would make the environmentalists happy if they required ethanol in our gasoline. Well, our engines don't run so well, and it takes more fuel to make the ethanol than it does save. But they say, oh, look what we're doing for the environment. Well, I just got lost here, because we do get lost, with my GPS. You ask, what's that? Hey, you're waking up. I don't know, I forgot. For the teenage grandkids, it's probably Generation Perfectly Savvy. And for the rest of us, grandparents, positively, I don't know, any ideas? Sunny. Super. Yes, yes, all right. Well, you know, every generation has had people that are stupid. And some people become famous for it. When I was a kid, we didn't have the Kardashians. We had the crazy mountain man. Hey, I climbed this mountain during a thunderstorm and talked to God and brought down these 2 rocks. And you people were so disgusting, I smashed them. And they were important. I don't know how they could have been important. They didn't say anything about Duet or Total Castle. That wasn't the worst of it. When I was young, I gave him directions, and he didn't pay attention. He got lost and wandered around out in the desert for 40 years. Anybody know who that was? Well, hey, you're good. Yeah, but he wasn't as bad as the guy that got lost 4 times on the wrong continent. Anybody know who that was? Yeah, you are so smart. How come you're not up here? Yeah, he wasn't any good at navigating by the stars, and then he had trouble with his OnStar. Another math and moaner. Well, it's interesting how I try to be healthy. I got a hold of some string beans. They were so stringy by the time I finished eating them, I'd already flossed my teeth. I stopped by a store on the way. I never park close to the door unless I have stuff to carry in. Never park close to the door so I can stir up my tired blood by running in for a few things. After I made my selection, I was running back to my car, and the kid says, "Hey, old man, how come you're running so fast?" "Well, you would be too, son, if you'd been shoplifting." String beans. Also, stop by a gym on the way. You know, the gyms are right across the parking lot. Join me after the show if you want to. And you know, one wonders what crime those people committed to be all those people there on the treadmills. Maybe eating? Well, the guy to my left was really fast. "Hey, what you doing passing me up? Treadmills aren't supposed to work that way." "Well, you're just a little white guy, and I'm from Nairobi." "So?" "That's the capital of Kenya. And we go to Boston, and we win marathons, and we don't bomb." Too soon for that one, huh? Well, then I went to the machines, and you know, I recognized them because they just added logos and foam pads from when I was a kid during the Spanish Inquisition. Another math one. That was what, 650 years ago? I always have to explain that to people from Apache Junction. Have you ever noticed from pictures back then that the subjects on the rack always had a little white cloth covering just the right spot? I was the towel boy. "Hey, don't stretch him out yet. I've got the towel here." Oh, you people have strange ways of doing things. When I was a kid, if I was interested in seeing some agony, I'd say, "Hey, I'm going to go down to the dungeon and visit the Inquisitor." You guys say, well, that might be a new word for some of you. So you guys say, "Hey, I'm going to go down the street and visit my chiropractor or my personal trainer." But the inquisitors would put bodies in impossible positions. Oh, we call that inquisition. Today you call that torture or yoga. Yeah, it's hard. I'm still holding on. And speaking of holding things, my mother used to say, Lillis, hold your horses. How many have heard that from them? Yeah. Well, with my grandpa taking the mail from the railroad to the post office, it was hold your horse. That's another mathematical and singular. Well, then during the 70s, it was cool your jets. And what is it nowadays?
Slow your roll.
Chill out. Do what?
Slow your roll.
Slow your roll. That's a good one. I haven't heard that. Slow your roll. Cool your jets. Or if you go to Hawaii, hakuna your tatas. Well, there's other things you have to hold. What are you shaking your head for? That's probably about as bad as you're going to get, but I'm not guaranteeing that. There's other things you hold. The way the little girl holds a baby doll, lay it down, it puts it to the eyes closed, puts the little doll to sleep, lift it up, it opens its eyes. But in the future, it's going to be different. The little girl or boy will close the baby doll's eyes this way and open them this way. Anybody know why? There's where the retired science teacher comes in, because she's living in the microgravity of outer space and just has to swing the pendulums around. Well, he says, that's right, good for you. I'm sure glad you came today. Even nowadays in the tropics where it's humid, the little girl has to close the baby doll's eyes this way and open them like this. You know why? Because the eyeball bearings are all rusted. And then there's the way I held my first grandchild. All it took was 10 seconds for me to understand crazy grandparents. And there's other ways to hold grandkids. This one leaks. Or, here, mommy, stinky baby. Now, you people don't have the luxury of that because you're raising your own grandkids. Well, you need to keep in mind you're not raising kids, you're raising, or if I call them grandkids instead of grandchildren, you're not raising kids, you're raising responsible adults. So remember, they're resilient. You can make a bunch of mistakes. Everybody made a bunch of mistakes, and look what happened to us. We're all here. The one thing that I can say is probably the most important, have a positive attitude toward things. I mean, if your car breaks down, well, we're here, this is terrible. Or you can say, well, we got some time, we got a little game in the back, we'll take it out and we'll play our game for a while we're waiting. So, positive attitude probably is number one. And the other thing is, see, I told you about the gym. There's some things I still don't understand. At my age, after 75 years, I don't understand why Sony puts such crummy keyboards on their computer. I went to the Dominican Republic and was sending on my website that I went to the Dominican Republic. We'll talk about my website. It's ArizonaLou.com. There's no advertising there. Look at my Smart Stuff webpage. I have ideas what young people like you, most people are younger than me, can do to enjoy retirement like I do. Anyway, look there, whatever you want. I've got the up-and-coming comedy appearances. I have free tickets. If you're interested, for downtown Phoenix on the 18th, that's a Wednesday, I'll be at Stand Up Live. Information about Duet all around. Oh, and I've got t-shirts. I have every size. They're $10. All profits go to charity. Duet, of course, and information about Duet up here. And I've sold quite a few t-shirts for that. And who knows, 5 years from now, you might be saying, I've got this Arizona Lou t-shirt, depending on how my comedy career goes. It's a good $18. Or you might say, I've got this Arizona Lou t-shirt, it's good for stinky, baby. Well, I want to live a long time. In fact, on my 100th birthday, I plan to still be in the game. Although by then, I'm sure I won't remember what game, but you can bet I'll still be on the bottom, along with the Cleveland Browns. What's that, our third motor we're on? We'll go for number 4. But 33 days after that birthday, I want to be with you folks, bringing in the new year, 2042. And I will even text you on your Apple iPhone 33. Or as they'll say then, XXXIII. Well, all it'll take me is about 920 million heartbeats. Now for you young people, it'll take me maybe up to 1 billion heartbeats if you forget your devotions and stuff like that. Well, some people, well, I collect boxes. Anybody here collect boxes? Let's hear it by applause.
We need some for our move.
Yes, if you have extra boxes, contact Elizabeth. But you don't read your instructions. You read the instructions. It says, save this box. So I've got boxes for all sorts of things. I have boxes for printer, office chair, mother-in-law. How many have ever gotten those free boxes you get from the post office for priority mail? Have you ever read the warning inside those? There's a warning. Those are government property. There's not yours. I have some in my closet at home. Does that make me a closet criminal? Well, I don't know how I'm going to die. But, oh, I was just kidding about that mother-in-law thing. She's dead. And you people are laughing at that. Shame on you. But I'm dying. So are you. Hopefully after I do. Have you ever noticed how we sugarcoat death? He's gone to be with the Lord. Some of my family's pretty certain I'm not in that category. Pushing daisies, greener pastures. I'm going to be pushing weeds and dandelions. But I don't know how I'm going to leave this world, but when I do, I want to be going as fast as I can. Having fun. I want my obituary to read something like, Arizona Lou died in an avalanche of boxes. Now, when I was a kid, it was a little bit different than with kids nowadays. I remember cars. Anybody remember the cars that had fenders and headlights on a little post sticking out the side? You're too young, you don't remember that. Well, yes, all right. My dad would, when we were little, would let us sit on the fender and hang on to the headlight. He'd take us around the block. We didn't even need the Magic Kingdom. We didn't have a whole lot of money, but we weren't poor because we had each other, kind of like you and your grandkids. And they, Mother was really conservative, and she couldn't see when she took us to the swimming pool, letting her little boys run around, like she said, half naked. So she gave us kind of special swimsuits. They hadn't invented Lycra yet, so these were knit cotton. And I thought all little boy swimsuits had a bib on. And mine was red and white, and it faded to pink and pink. So real young, I learned to be humble. Anybody here, let's hear it by applause if you use margarine. Anybody here use margarine? Okay. Now, you don't, I'm going to explain to you too. And applause uses both hands, not just the head. Well, it was just becoming prevalent, and we'd get a block, a chunk of margarine. It was against the law to make it yellow because they might confuse it with butter. In fact, some states outlawed margarine. They said margarine is one governor of one state said margarine is the result of decrepit human minds. And it's going to ruin society as we know it, the American society. And they even did some research. The researchers found, I don't know who paid for the study, found that margarine could cause cancer, also insanity. Well, now we understand you guys. That's not all. They hadn't yet invented detergent. Well, we were clean because we had soap, and we couldn't afford the liquid soap. So we had a little wire cage on the end of a handle. You'd put your little spare bars of soap in it that were too small to use in the bathroom, swish it around the dishwater, and you had your soapy dishwater. But I remember when I first heard about this new invention called detergent, I was in the backyard playing with my little cars in the dirt. That's what we had in those days, dirt. Now, you kids probably don't play in the dirt, or your grandkids. And, well, we did. I probably ate my share, and we didn't have a whole lot of allergies and things. Anyway, I was going home from the corner store one time and saw in the neighbor's house, in the front yard of the neighbor's house, in his dirt, it was a big house, all houses were bigger than our house, was the cutest little die-cast snub-nosed truck that I'd ever seen. So I picked it up, put it in my pocket, went home with it. The problem was I couldn't play with it because Mother would ask where I got it. Also, I felt really guilty because I was raised a good Baptist. And 2 weeks later, I started to return it to where I found it. And the little boy and his family had moved. So I never was able, and folks, that was the end of my comedy career. I mean, today might be the end of that one. That was the end of my criminal career. Thank you. I'm so glad you came too. Well, I learned also young, a few years later, developed my idea of saving. We had little sheet metal dime banks. You put a dime in the shape of a cash register, push the little lever, the little counter would go over to 10 cents. You kept feeding them, but the thing is, after you put your first dime in, the door locked and didn't unlock until you got $10 worth of dimes. Well, I was real generous to my brother. He got $10 worth of dimes in his, and I put in one more dime. The door locked again. So he'd have to put in $10 more worth of dimes before he could get his money out, but the dime bank was small enough that there wasn't enough space for 10 more, so I think he ended up opening the thing up and taking it apart, tearing it apart to get his money out. See how generous I was? Well, I go on trips. I went to Maui kiteboarding and did a little comedy out there. And kiteboarding, how many have heard of kiteboarding? Well, then, okay, well, let me tell you, if you go to my website, I have a video on if you're interested. But kiteboarding is where you're on a wakeboard with a huge kite up in the wind pulling you. All we want is wind. And the fishermen say, oh, the wind's getting worse. Kiteboarders say, you mean better? There I saw an 85-year-old guy getting a kiteboard lesson. I took care of him, and now I'm the oldest kiteboarder in the world. Unfortunately, there wasn't as much wind as we like, so I did a lot of SUP. Haven't you heard of SUP? That's S-U-P, stand-up paddleboarding. As opposed to what I do here, suck. Come on, that's S-U-C, stand-up comedy. And after I picked on you guys, you're going to add a K to it. Well, the first challenge to me was to get the board across the beach into the water. It actually went pretty well until I got stuck in the sand with my little rascal electric scooter. Well, then I decided to hold the board sideways. And that worked out pretty well until bonk, bonk, I took out 2 kids. Bonk, boing, took out a mother breastfeeding her baby who was offending an old man. Boing, boing, took him out, solved that problem. Well, then I decided to hold the board under my arm and use what they call a handle. I don't know why they call it a handle, because it's not even deep enough for your fingers. They should call it a fingo, or maybe a finger tipple. When I finally got the board down in the water, my challenge was to go from my knees to standing up. And it looked something like this. I know that's the board police. I should have had a walker. I did get a wave though from a lifeguard. Hey, hey, get out of here. This beach is closed with old men with big boards. But I really did catch a wave. You ask, how long did it take?
How long did it take?
To catch that wave, it took me 2 years. But I rode that little wave on the Kailua Harbor 561 feet. My caregiver never caught me. The last day I was there, it was windy for a change, and so I was doing some kiteboarding over the boneyard, and that's a sketchy area where the coral reef is just below the surface of the water. It's like Mother Nature said, hey, let's put big rocks there just for him. Well, I was on my custom fish with foot straps. And you wonder what that is. That is stupid. Because foot straps would have kept me on the board. It's a little short surfboard. I blew a job, got drug over the coral reef, fed the fish with donations of skin from my knees, feet, and another body part I don't talk about much, my left thigh. And the fish said, thank you for the food. On the way back home, at my age, I got very well acquainted with the airline restrooms. And I declare, the Boeing engineer said, hey, let's measure people and we'll make our restrooms 3 inches smaller. And so, you go in there, you have to stand like this if you're a guy. Ladies, it's no problem. And then if you notice, the water faucets turn off as soon as you take your hand off. So good luck trying to get your hand under the water while it's still running. And then the paper towel holders are a little bit narrower, the opening, than the paper towels. And the spring's so strong, you know about this, you're guaranteed to get confetti to try to dry your hands. And then the spring behind the waist door is so strong that it throws the confetti back in your face. And there's some corpulous people there on that flight that I know could not maneuver in and back out successfully. I can just hear the flight crew now. Los Angeles Center, this is Hawaii 35. We've got someone in the restroom. He's stuck. It's our captain. Hey, I know how to fly this airplane. I'm the co-pilot. Well, for me, it looked something like this. Ladies, I just raised the seat. You hardly even noticed. And I wouldn't have had to do that because I'm in this bathroom by myself. Nobody would have known. Besides, it's an imaginary bathroom. I'm going to do it again, and I want to hear some noise. What are you laughing about? Whose side are you on, anyway? After you finish your business, the flush is so violent, the toilet paper blows in the wind. No, it wasn't me, it was the person before. Well, my next trip was the opposite direction, to the East Coast for kiteboarding. And when there wasn't enough wind for kiteboarding with my friend Tim, we'd go SUP, stand-up paddleboarding. And while I was struggling to balance on my board, he was on his doing yoga. For the flexibility, show off. Anybody here into yoga who's taking yoga class? Anybody here? Okay, good. And your name?
Erlene.
Hardly?
Erlene.
Erlene. Namaste. Now, Erlene knows what that means, don't you? That's yoga talk for the rest of you. That's yoga talk for howdy, partner. Well, I know about this yoga stuff because there on Hatteras Island, I took my first yoga classes for the flexibility and the view of the ocean. Turns out the class was inside with the lights out. So much for that view. I did find out what it was like to become a human pretzel, though. Heather, our instructor, said, just relax. Well, she had us holding the 2x4. Now, us yoga types call that the plank position. That's like me telling you to relax with one foot on the dock and the other foot on the boat. I go down further, but I'd hurt myself. The hardest thing for me to hold was the poochie puppy. Now, you yoga types call that the downward facing dog. I called it arms torture. It wasn't all I had to hold. I had a determined methane bubble that desperately wanted to reach the atmosphere. Now, those of you with young grandchildren, you know what I'm talking about, because those little kids give a whole different meaning to the term bubble bath. I was able to hold it, but not the poochie puppy. And after the second session, Heather came around and used some smelly stuff to massage my head. I just hope she didn't mess up my hair. Come on now, that's a joke. Because this hair is a joke. What should be going out the top is going out my ears. Well, at least it keeps the bugs out. My ex says, well, it keeps the bugs in with all the craziness. Well, the sixth class was yoga by the beach. And there was the Atlantic Ocean. But I was toward the back and couldn't see it through all the young distractions. By the end of that class, I didn't even care if I saw the ocean or not. The sixth class, we were asked to look at our navels. was the view. Shape up, Lou. Oh, I went to the Dominican Republic, kiteboarding, of course. Let's hear if you've ever done anything really stupid. Let's hear by applause. Have you ever done anything stupid? That was a pretty good percentage. Well, going to the Dominican Republic for kiteboarding wasn't the stupid part. In the mornings when there wasn't wind, I did sup. And I paddled over to an isolated beach. Of course, nobody was around. Stepped off the board in about knee-deep water and saw a little wave coming in. And I knew that Mother Nature didn't like me because it was going to take the board, flip it up on the beach. So I says, I can win this bout with Mother Nature. I grabbed a little loop of rope at the back of the board and held on tight. The wave came, flipped the board over, wrapping the rope around my fingers, and then slammed it. I won. I still had the board, but not all my fingers. I knew I was in trouble when I looked down and saw my index finger dangling by some skin. You people will remember me when you next time you have your chicken fingers. I put the finger back up on the stump and noticed I didn't break one fingernail. I didn't realize at that time that I'd just broken these two bones, my first bones ever, and only. Well, I picked the board up with my good hand and headed across the narrow beach, narrow road, trying to get some help. The only person around was over across the road, a security guard sitting by a big house. He didn't move a muscle. So I decided I better use my extensive Spanish vocabulary. Emergencia! He came over and put my board to be safe so I could go back to the road and hitchhike into town. Hey, hey, hey! Zoom! Well, would you stop and pick a barefoot guy wearing nothing but a wet black hat, a little wet red blood, and little black Speedos? I won't pause too long. I don't want that one to sink in. The second car did stop. It was John Paul from Germany, and he knew English and knew how to get to the emergency room through all the motoconchos. Now, a motoconcho you probably haven't heard of. It's guys on small motorcycles that will take you anywhere you want to go in Las Terrenas. And probably 500 speed bumps. I couldn't see going to the emergency room in my current state of abbreviated attire. So we stopped by my hotel room. I found a t-shirt on the back of a chair, threw it on. Mother would not have been proud because it was grubby. What did your mother always tell you about? Always put on clean, put on clean stuff in case you have to go to the emergency room. Well, I put my cargo shorts over the wet swim trunks, which was stupid and embarrassing when John Paul had to zip me up because I couldn't. And I realized at the time that it was going to be 3 hours until they got me into surgery at the hospital. I would have done some other things. I would have taken pictures of my hand for bragging rights. I would have put on a clean t-shirt. I would have put on clean, dry underwear. Mom would have been proud. Hey, thank you for coming. Mother would have been proud. When we finally got to the hospital, the nurses ganged up on me. The one to the left put an IV in my hand so I couldn't escape. The one to my right wrapped my hand in a big ace bandage so they wouldn't have to look at it, and so they'd forget how bad it was and forget that I really needed immediate attention. And she took me up to my room on the second floor, handed me my hospital gown, and stood there. Now here, as you know, what they say is, here, put this on, I'll step out of the room. I'll be back in a couple minutes. But she just stood there. And I didn't know any Spanish, so I kind of motioned up. she just stood there. I think she wanted to check and make sure I took off everything. And I wanted to think she also was taking inventory to make sure I had everything. I got even with her, though. After the x-rays downstairs, going up to my room, I took my lightsaber. Now, you medical types know that as an IV pole with wheels and bags and all on. Took my lightsaber and walked up the grand staircase. Got a little exercise there. Well, I was discharged late the next day with nothing to do while I was there in the hospital except read books about comedy and figure out what was funny about the whole thing. Not a whole lot. And I felt silly with my hand all bandaged up, riding back to the hotel on a moto concho until I saw my surgeon on a moto concho also. Back in the hotel, I could still use my hand, made a good hat rack. I had everything bandaged except my pinky and my thumb. I could change TV channels. I could be like Queen Elizabeth and do the wave. Well, I already told you about boxes, but the thing is, time for some water. On my trip, I did some comedy in Baltimore. Thanks for coming. I did some comedy in Baltimore, and their tourism department is trying to figure a publicity campaign to get more tourism. Can you believe that? And I can think of some things that they might consider for their sayings for that. They can say, Baltimore, we invented rioting 157 years ago. Or Baltimore, we were the first ones to turn over covered wagons when our Democrats felt that was better than war. Baltimore, our trains stay on the tracks. Baltimore, we don't bomb. Too soon for that one, too. Baltimore, the birthplace of Freddie Gray. Well, I had voice surgery, and sometimes my voice goes up high, and it's embarrassing, especially on the telephone. Hello? May I please speak to the man of the house? I am the man. Or worse, hello? Are your parents home? Yes. I put them up on the mantle. They told me in life to earn everything. Hey, you people are great. I really enjoyed here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for treating everyone to this special day and your compassion for all of the people Duet helps. So thank you.
Thank you.